Yes. There we go. Great. So we're live. I am here with Rosalind Sedacca. Rosalind, please introduce yourself just in case people have not been keeping up with our conversations the last couple of weeks and they're not sure who you are.
Absolutely. So I'm Rosalind Sedacca. I'm the founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network. I'm a divorce and co-parenting coach, and I work nationally and internationally to help parents make the best decisions about their children before, during, and long, long after divorce.
I love that. And my name is Maria Natapov. I am a step parenting and co-parenting coach, and I help families post-divorce really transform family chaos into harmonious co-parenting.
Ah,
So I'm
so
so
important.
excited. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
I
Rosalind.
said
I didn't
so
mean to.
important.
And your work too, naturally. I mean, you are truly such an inspiration and you're a veteran in this field. You've been doing this for so long. You really are an expert at your craft. And I know that you've helped numerous families successfully navigate these very challenging, very difficult waters when their life is turned upside down and kind of cracked wide open, right? And
Well,
so
thank
thank you
you.
so much for everything you do. And I'm so excited to delve into this conversation where we're really talking specifically about how to introduce two different sets of kids to each other. So if one, obviously both people are post-divorce and they have found who they believe to be their new partner, new long-term partner, and when both of those folks have kids, how do you blend these different sets of children and these two clans of completely different people with their own past experiences and different kinds of upbringing? And that is what we're going to be exploring today. So
And you have personal experience in this realm, real life experience in the trenches. So why don't you start and give us an overview of what you know needs we parents need to be aware of.
yes. Well, I appreciate that. My experience is a little bit different in that I didn't have children coming into my relationship. So I came into my stepdaughter's life when she was turning 7 years old as a stepmom. I was dating her dad at that point. We knew that things were serious. Actually, our meeting was going to kind of make or break. She was like the final piece of the puzzle. And we knew if that wasn't going to work or, the meeting wasn't going to go well, basically, that was going to be it for us. So I'm glad that things went really well. Um, I think the key is, I was reflecting on this in the beginning because for me, I was really nervous. I had some things that I had experienced as a child that were not great. My parents' relationship was very contentious when they were separating and divorcing. And I think I was really scared to take on a caregiver role. I thought, I love kids and I want the best for them, and I'm great for a few hours, but I should not be. I was scared. I was just scared to kind of pass along, and create a bad experience or not be able to provide what a child needs at that time. And from personal experience, I knew the needs are great because life is very difficult. Things are scary. It's a lot of upheaval having to have two parents in different homes, different locations. And I had a really hard time with that when I was a kid. So it was very scary for me to take on that role. So I was kind of really hesitant. And I tried to talk my then boyfriend out of dating me for a while too, actually. But he shared with me that it was because I knew what didn't work and what I didn't want and what was not a good experience, that I was actually in a better position than I realized to step into these shoes. And when I really sat with that for a few days and let that settle, I took that on. I realized he was right. And at that point, what happened for me that was different was commitment. At that point, I had to just decide and I made the choice. Okay, I'm gonna be courageous and I'm gonna give this a shot. And that meant I'm gonna jump in with both feet. And I think that really sets the tone when, sometimes I hear of parents or potential caregivers coming into a new relationship, whether they have kids of their own or not, it's very tempting to sort of see, well, let me meet these people and let me meet these people and let me see how things work out. And while that definitely plays a factor and it's important, I think the key is getting one's own mindset very clear on, is this the decision? Are you making this leap or are you not? And being very intentional with that decision, I think, is very important and sets the tone for many different things between how whether things work out or not, how committed you stay, how you navigate those situations. Because I really believe when there's a will, a lot of times, not every single time, sometimes there are other factors outside of our control, but a lot of times there is a way to make things work. And having that clarity within yourself, it removes the rubbish of all the other what ifs, right? And then you're no longer at the affect of all these external circumstances that you have no control over, because you have a clear purpose and destination for yourself, within yourself.
I think that makes total sense. And you're absolutely right. It's the commitment that makes the big difference. When you have one foot in one direction and one foot in the other direction, you're less likely to really be there and care enough to overcome some of the battles and obstacles
Yeah.
initially. Because as we all know, your children, anyone's children, are not going to instantaneously love you and respect you, etc. And so you're walking into difficult waters, and having
Yes.
that commitment gives you that extra emphasis on saying, I'm here and I want to make this work. So kudos to you. And this is such an important topic. So what are some of the areas we're going to discuss, and we could jump in and start
Yes.
talking about them?
Yes. So I think a great place to start is how to introduce the kids, right? What does the first meeting or interaction look like? And of course, my advice is keep it light and keep it fun and keep it engaging. So if you can create a situation that, in case things don't go well, you can easily leave. However, that there's an engaging activity, I think that that's always a great meeting, because it gives a true opportunity for the kids to do something together. And through that experience, through that interaction, naturally they'll get a good sense for each other, right? Just being with each other's energy. And, does conversation flow? Are there common interests, right? Like how do we problem solve? And right, like I think of team building activities essentially, but for kids, so it has to have an element of fun. It has to be a game of some sort, or something along those lines. That's what comes to mind for me. What do you think, Rosalind? I'm
Well,
sure you have great tips.
I think that's absolutely right on. And of course, that works much more readily for younger children.
Hmm.
When so that's perfect, because activity is very important. Sitting around a table and having a meeting kind of thing is not nearly as good for younger kids. It may be different for teens
Yes.
and older kids, and then of course there's the situation of adult children blending in families
Yes.
as well. But when you have the older kids, it may be that you are sitting at a table in a restaurant or in a living room, and talking to each other. And then you want to prepare some good topics for conversation, where you're not putting anyone on the defensive to
Yeah.
explain life history and drama, keeping
Right.
the questions light, but at the same time asking inquisitive questions where the person has an opportunity to talk and share their likes and dislikes and
Yes.
tell a little bit about their history. It gets more complicated with the older the child, because the older the child is, the more opinionated they are, the more judgmental they are, the more likely they are to take sides. And in some cases, the more likely they are to try to sabotage a situation, because
Hmm.
some kids have the attitude, no one deserves to be with my mother or father. I don't want this, and I'm just going to do everything I can to make life miserable for everyone. So you need to be prepared for that. And
Yes.
that doesn't mean, because the first time your kids are acting in that way, doesn't mean you give up. You,
Right.
you
Right.
as parents need to have patience and understand that everyone is testing the waters. There's a
Right.
lot of egos. There's a lot of moving parts when you're introducing And there's a huge difference. Sorry about that. I thought
No, that's okay.
uh, there's a huge difference between introducing one child versus two or three or more children on either side of the equation. So that's another
Yes.
part of the situation that has to be taken into account.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to just underscore a couple of things in there that you just mentioned that I can pull from our previous conversations in case, again, folks haven't listened. And if you haven't, I do encourage you to go back and do rewatch those conversations too. There's a lot of beautiful nuggets in there. But what comes to mind first is be sure to have conversations with your kids, letting them know this is coming so that they are not, caught off guard. And this is sort of out of left field. Suddenly they're being thrown into this situation. They don't know who these people are, and they had no idea that this was intended. So that's number one. And number two is it also underscores for me because you're totally right. Even sometimes when you do your best job of preparing, everybody seems in agreement, everyone is excited. When you get there, people have a different response because you can't predict sometimes how you're going to react and what will come up, especially in terms of emotions, especially for kids, even older kids sometimes. So you're right that you might still find yourself in these waters. And to that point, I want to again point us back to our previous conversations where we say it's so key to create plenty of space after the fact to talk to your kids, really hear them out, take their concerns, what have you, into consideration and actually acknowledge them and support them through processing those emotions. And again, just as we've said before, reassuring them that their place, they are irreplaceable, that their place within your heart is secure, it's solid, you will always love them, there will always be your number one priority. Basically, that there's nobody, there's no threat to them, that if there's other people, be they kids or adults coming into your life, that anybody will be taking away from what is theirs with regard to your bond and your relationship.
Yeah,
That's really the key.
absolutely. No one will replace you in my heart as my
Mhm.
child. And it's important to expect the unexpected because we know our kids well, and very often we could predict which of the children is going to behave in certain ways, and sometimes they totally surprise us, and the one you thought was going to be the most difficult isn't, and then another child is really acting out and behaving in ways you weren't expecting. So expect the unexpected and
Yes.
accept it and understand this is a process.
Mhm.
And we don't want the children to feel they must, they should, they have to love
Right.
and like the person you're introducing them to. And sometimes there's going to be games. They're just mind games. There's
Mhm.
going to be, they're testing the waters. So they're going to be kicking and acting out and suddenly getting a stomach ache right before you're supposed to be all getting
Yep.
together, etc. Because that's the way kids are and that's the way they handle their power. Kids
Mhm.
don't have a lot of power in life, and so they'll do what they can do. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's intentional sabotaging just to act out and do that. Other times they have legitimate instances where they're feeling insecure or not feeling not liked by your partner or feeling that their place is being taken over and that they're going to need several visits and lots of reassurance. And when you're having those conversations, asking them about the situation and how do they feel about this new friend of yours,
Yeah.
be prepared for them to be abrupt and brutal sometimes and candid. And I don't like him, I don't want to see him again. and
Right.
and you have to understand that that isn't necessarily the forever situation. so
Yes.
so you need a lot of patience, and you need to be able to talk to your children in ways where you're not making them wrong for feeling what
Yes.
they're feeling. I hear what
Absolutely.
you're saying. You didn't like when John said this. You didn't like how Mary explained this to you. And get them nodding that you're hearing what they're saying and you're understanding how they're feeling. Maybe
Yep.
we could do this. What do you suggest? How would you prefer?
Yeah.
And having conversations so they're still part, they're not losing their power, they're still part of the process, and let's try it this way next time, and
Yes.
if it's any better. And that, of course, is just you and the kids. Then when there's other siblings, there can be obviously an array of different feelings, different personalities melding and not melding. And so you need to take it very slowly, baby steps, lots
Hmm.
of time, no pressure, no insisting that anyone feel a certain way, because you wouldn't like it, anyone to tell you how to be feeling.
Yes.
And at the same time, you and your partner need to be discussing and talking afterwards and finding out what can we do
Hmm.
about the various grievances or opinions that one or more of the children is having. And sometimes it works to get back and say, hey, we talked, and you were right, Susie. We could do this instead of that. We could do it this way instead of that way. We could meet this way instead of that way, and be malleable and flexible with the kids, but
Hmm.
letting them know at the same time that they're not wielding all the power, and that you have a life and you want company in your life. And this relationship is not in any way a way of measuring my love for you as my child. Again and again, in different ways, that needs to be emphasized.
Yes, you said so much good stuff there. And I just want to highlight a couple of things and then I have a follow-up question for you. So, first of all, you alluded to that, asking the kids, how should we handle this? What do you think would be good to do? I love that. That's so great. First of all, kids will often know, right, what it is that they're looking for and what they're needing. So, brilliant. And also, I think oftentimes, even with young kids, we underestimate how creative, how clever they are and how great they are at problem solving. So when given the opportunity, not only does it really validate them, make them feel really secure, make them feel like you guys are a team, um, and that they have a voice, which is so, so important. That's probably the root of most challenges when it comes to kids in blended families is that they don't have enough of those things. So that's so brilliant. And they really do come up with wonderful ideas. It might require some negotiation or some tempering, but at least involving them and allowing them the opportunity to speak and really helping them build that muscle. I mean, that is a life skill. So I can't think of a better opportunity than to involve them in making those suggestions and really kind of making those bids, I guess, really encouraging them to make those bids. And then, as you said, when there's multiple children, we might need to find a compromise across the board, perhaps, or, maybe we have to pick and choose and say, okay, we're going to try these couple of things. Can we all agree? And then if that doesn't work, we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll try again. But the other question I wanted to ask you a follow up on is you mentioned sometimes in the middle of testing boundaries, kids may essentially what I call their feelings might come out sideways, where they have a stomach ache right before it's time to go somewhere or do something, or, something else happened. They pick a fight over another thing. I'm curious, suggest, how do you suggest parents respond to that situation?
Well, if you're prepared for it, it's better. And then you're moving back into your own parenting history. So how have you handled that child? Is that a habitual thing that we've seen before, or is this a behavior that's never showed up before in their lives? And you're going to be different in the way you attack things
Mhm.
because of that. So I think you need to trust your gut on in parenting and respond in the way you feel is best, because no one knows your child better than you.
Mhm.
I did want to bring up another topic that I think is very important for everyone to keep in mind. I
Yes.
found in my experience that the closer the relationship your children have with their other parent
Mhm.
once you're divorced, the easier it is for them to meet and accept new people in their lives, because they know that this new love partner of yours is not a threat to becoming their new father or mother, that they're not
Mhm.
taking over the place. When a child has a solid relationship with their father and mother after the divorce, and then you're introducing them to your new love partner, it makes it much easier for them to accept this new adult because they're a friend, they're a support system, they're not replacing the most important other parent in their lives. So
Yeah.
that isn't something you could instantly change, of course, at this point in time, but it's a reason to have a very strong, powerful co-parenting relationship through the
Hmm.
divorce and after the divorce, because it's going to make life easier for you in that regard. And you could reassure them that they're never going to be losing their relationship with their other parent, and this is not a there's not a competition. And
Yes.
very, very important to get that competitiveness, which naturally flares up as a fear and anxiety and a possibility for kids, and they need to be reminded that there is no competition between who they love, and there's enough room in their heart to love many, many people.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I so agree with you. And thank you for highlighting that, Rosalind. So some other things that come to mind with regard to this topic is, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, that there could be competition, and not just with regard to the adult partner, but competition with some of the other children. And sometimes there's also the question of fairness that comes up, right? Like, kids have different upbringings, so the rules might be different as far as the expectations set for these sets of children. And among them, they might, again, they're often testing boundaries and they're trying to make sense of the concepts we teach them. So they might kind of, get upset about how so and so doesn't need to maybe clean up the dishes or put them away, and that they do, or maybe there's another chore that they have to do, and one of these other new kids doesn't have to do it, or maybe it has to do with foods and the kinds of foods they're allowed to eat versus, your kids might not be allowed to eat them. So how do we navigate those kinds of challenges, those kinds of um, grievances, as you've said, Rosalind? Do you have suggestions?
Well, you're absolutely right. That is one of the biggest challenges that most everyone faces. And it in frankly, it's hard to be fair all the time. And what is fair?
Yes, yes,
We
exactly.
as parents, we try to be fair, but we need to put ourselves in every child's shoes before
Yeah,
we take any steps and act out in any way with decisions,
mhm,
because we have to understand how the child is seeing it and take into account their past experience, because it may very well appear unfair from their perspective, and we've never even looked at it from that place. So that's
yeah,
very important. And remind them, we need to remind our partners that they should never be step into the place of being the disciplinarian, to being the substitute other parent in the children's lives, because it's very unusual for children to accept a new parent partner and not say, you're not my father, you're not my mother, when something comes up. It's much better if the new partner is not doing any disciplining and is there more as a support system for the kids who know they have this other parent. Now, that doesn't work in every family, and in some families, the children aren't in a close relationship with their former parent because of situations that we're not happy about, but they do happen. But for the most part, we want the new the new love interest to understand that disciplining is not a good place for them to start any relationship with children, and that um, I suggest family meetings are a good way to discuss fairness. Everyone has grievances, and to sit down once a week or every 2 weeks, everyone getting together and giving them time, 5 minutes to talk or vent and say what's bothering them, catching it early on is so much easier to address it than letting it sit for 6 months or a year before there's an explosion of resentment and hatred. So finding out what's going on and what appears not fair, discussing it, and how would you suggest we change it, giving the children, all the children, an ability to state a way of doing things and resolving the situations again, empowers them more and makes them feel like they have a voice in their future.
Yeah, 100%. So what I heard you say that I think is so key is first and foremost, as the adult, as the caregiver, as the parent, really taking the time to understand your child. Like really approach the situation with curiosity and ask more questions, really get into their world and then validate how they're feeling, validate that you understand, validate what it is you're hearing them say. Sometimes kids don't have all the language to name the feelings and all the contributing pieces. So they need our help. It's an opportunity to help them develop and also just to really make them feel seen and heard, right? And that calms the amygdala and that calms the nerves and those needs and allows you to actually get into a more productive and effective conversation to figure out what's next. And then I love your idea too, and I suggest it often the idea of having family meetings, ideally every week, especially if you have a new situation and it's kind of a larger clan. There's lots of opinions, lots of needs. So, really giving everybody an opportunity to speak in that forum and for everyone else to hear what each other is saying, what each other is bringing to the table. And I suggest sometimes using a talking stick if necessary, and for sure using a timer also. Both of those can work really well. And the other thing that comes to mind is developing empathy, because the reality is, as you pointed out, Rosalind, fairness is such a big concept, and what is fair in one situation or to one person may not be fair to another because people's needs are different, their circumstances are different, their abilities are different too, depending on sometimes age, sometimes other factors like, are there disabilities, or perhaps if children are neurodivergent versus typical kids, like there will just be different needs and accommodations required. And so considering that and kind of bringing those concepts and frames, I think, to the kids early on into the conversation is really useful because it's how we develop empathy. It's how we can really develop being able to appreciate and accommodate somebody outside of just our own perspective, outside of just our own world and our own needs and our own way that we have been looking at things. So those are the two main things that come to mind. Do you
Excellent.
agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I think
Yeah.
everything you said is crucially important. And another possibility is giving every child the ability to have a day or a time when we use their idea or their opinion
Yes.
for doing something, whether it's even what we're having for dinner next week or a trip that we're taking, everyone getting a possibility so that we understand in a family where there's more than one child
Yeah.
that there's going to be differing opinions. And if everyone gets a turn, it seems more fair because we're going to be doing it your way at some point in time and
Yes.
someone else's way at another point in time. And we're learning that no two people
Yeah.
think the same way, and we have to be patient with one another and accepting. And that leads to respecting one another's ability to have different opinions.
Yes. And flexibility. That's another really key thing that gets developed, which is so beautiful because it's needed in the real world all the time, especially in a blended family setting. Brilliant, Rosalind. Final thoughts that you'd like to share on this topic?
Um, let, let me hear what you have to say because at the moment I don't have a final thought, but something may pop into my head.
Yeah, I think just as we've already discussed and we've talked about previously, really ensuring that there is respect for everybody, that everybody feels heard, seen. I love your idea of taking turns to do different activities or making different decisions. Involving kids in decision making is a huge way to get their buy-in. And again, being able to be flexible that today we're doing it your way, but then we're going to have to do it all of these other folks' way. And it also gives them an opportunity to enrich their lives because sometimes they might be surprised what they discover that they enjoy that they would have never tried or done otherwise. So it really is, I think, a beautiful opportunity in blended families to contribute to each other by bringing everybody's strengths and likes into the equation in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. I know some people like to use the term bonus families and think about one another as bonus people in our lives. And there's something very positive about that concept, because we wouldn't be in each other's lives had our parents not been involved in a divorce. And we've all gone through some tough, maybe painful, definitely challenging situations and a period of time.
Mhm.
And yet here's new people in our life. And in some cases, really are a gift. In some cases, they are a blessing. Another person who I can play with, or who will support me and take care of me and do things with me. It and in some cases, there's more stress and tension because of various differences in what's going on. But it's something to be looking at, and as our world is expanding, and there's new relationships and new love. And we've both seen wonderful blended families where the people really come to love and respect each other. And we've seen other families where there's a lot of tension, and it's a difficult challenge. Fortunately, you could reach out and get support and professional help, so that sometimes a challenge can be worked on, overcome, and then everything smooths out afterwards. So be very patient, don't give up, and remember that you as parents are role models for those children. And I think that's the most important takeaway always. They're watching and learning from you.
Yes.
And if you handle the challenges with a sense of acceptance and peace, and try to de-escalate the stress and conflict, then they're going to learn that there are better ways of doing that they can pick up themselves. And that really is a gift for every child.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think that's such a key point is more than anything, kids are watching what we're doing, much more so than listening.
Yes.
They're listening too, but they're more watching, especially in those very trying moments, to see if you walk your talk. And
Mhm.
so being mindful of that, I would say also incorporating self-care and self-regulation strategies when necessary, even if that means, you know what, I'm getting upset. I'm going to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to set a timer and we'll come back to this conversation. That is powerful stuff. And again, your kids are going to pick that up from you if that is what you're modeling. And I love that you shared too, Rosalind, that you can always reach out to resources like us, and we will be sure to put all the links in the comments. And Rosalind, just briefly, could you please share the wonderful, amazing resource that you put together for the month of January that you have been putting together for many years, and it's available this year now as well? Please share.
Well, thank you. January is International Child-Centered Divorce Month. So if you're listening to this in January, then you can go to the special website, divorcedparentsupport.com, where you'll find free gifts from divorce experts around the world. Anything that's downloadable, there's ebooks and e-courses and free coaching and tip sheets and all of those kinds of things. And all you have to do is enter your email address and click, and you'll get to the page where you could just download as many of those gifts as you want. They're all wonderful. They're all child-centered divorce professionals who really care about family dynamics. So you're in good hands, and you could come back again and again all through the rest of the month and take advantage. And once again, the website is divorcedparentsupport.com.
Fantastic. We'll definitely put that link in the comments as well. Rosalind, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. We have one more next week, so I'm excited to speak with you then. And we will see you all next week.
Bye bye now.